Gambia's new president, Adama Barrow, has returned to the country to assume power days after his predecessor, Yahya Jammeh, left to go on exile. President Barrow's plane touched down at Banjul Airport, where jubilant crowds waited to welcome him. Mr. Barrow, who has been in neighboring Senegal, won the elections in December. However, a handover was stalled when Mr. Jammeh, Gambia's president of 22 years, refused to step aside. He left for exile at the weekend after mediation by regional leaders and the threat of military intervention. Mr. Barrow, dressed in white robes and a cap, stepped off the plane in Banjul as heavily armed troops from Senegal and Nigeria stood by. Overhead, a fighter jet from the West African force guaranteeing the new president's security performed fly past. The president said his priority was to appoint his cabinet and then get the ball rolling. The new chief of the UN mission in South Sudan, David Chiera, has reiterated the UN's mission commitment to support efforts to bring peace to the people of South Sudan during his meeting with President Salva Kiir, a spokesman for the UN Secretary General says. In a press statement in New York on Thursday, Stephanie Dujarric, the spokesman for the UN Secretary General, said Chiera met with President Kiir in Juba, where he pledged to support peace efforts in South Sudan. The spokesman pointed out that the new UNMISS chief told President Kiir that the UN and UNMISS are there to support the government and help the people of South Sudan. Dujarric added that the new UNMISS head said his job will be done when the conditions in South Sudan permits them to leave. Separately, the spokesman pointed out that Chiera also met with the South Sudanese Minister of Cabinet Affairs, Martin Elia. He noted that Chiera was pleased to hear the Cabinet Affairs Minister reiterate South Sudan government's commitment to the deployment of the Regional Protection Force mandated by the UN Security Council. A prominent Egyptian human rights lawyer has been barred from leaving the country as military-backed administration of President Abdel Fattah el-Sisi intensifies crackdown on dissidents and political opponents. Negat Borai, who runs the United Group for Law, said on Thursday that he was stopped at Cairo airport while attempting to travel to Jordan to visit his wife. Officials at the airport stopped Borai following a request from the public prosecutor's office. Barrow, who had earlier drafted an anti-torture bill and submitted it to President el-Sisi, is being accused of deliberately spreading false information, receiving illegal funds, and incitement to resist authorities. The Egyptian government has launched an investigation into Barrow and two judges over proposing the draft law to combat torture. The New York-based Human Rights Watch, HRW, in a recent statement called on the Egyptian authorities to drop all charges leveled against them. This has been the latest in a series of travel bans imposed on rights activists. Several journalists, rights activists, and politicians have been barred from leaving Egypt over the past few months. The Egyptian lawmakers have recently passed a new law that puts heavy restrictions on non-governmental organizations. Several prominent human rights groups have repeatedly condemned the Egyptian government's systematic use of travel bans against activists, political opponents, and dissidents. We'll go on a short break and more news when we return.